Live from the Math Department. How to. Tips for using the TI-84 calculator. Hi guys, this morning I want to show you 3 things for new users of the TI-84 calculator. They've done a couple of nice things here on the layout of the keyboard itself. As you can see, they're color-coded keys, and that should help you to navigate your way around. Obviously, you can see the digits very clearly, the mathematical operations clearly, and then we've got various buttons here that should remind you of your scientific calculator, and some that might seem a little different than what you've seen before. Many of these buttons contain a sub-menu with many different commands and features that you can call up. For instance, let's look at the Math menu. Under the Math menu, we can see that there's a button to convert decimal numbers to fractions, fractions to decimals, and many other items. And in fact, if we scroll down using the arrow keys, you'll see some of the other things that we can do here. Many of these won't mean anything to you because they're Math 12 functions or even calculus functions. Now up at the top of this screen, you can see the word Math is highlighted, but there's also Num, CPX, and PRB. And those are different subheadings in this category. If we scroll to the right, now we're looking at the number functions, CPX and PRB as well. Most of these buttons up here have sub-functions like that, and you can look at those menus and play around with those. Anytime you're finished in an area like this, what you want to do is quit. And if you look here on the Mode button, just above it, it says Quit, so we will go Second, Mode, quitting us back to the main calculating screen. I'll go ahead and clear my screen. If I wanted to type a fraction, 5 over 2, one way to do it is simply to type 5 divided by 2. And in fact, if you have the older operating system on this calculator, that's the only way you can do it. But if you have the new operating system, and you'll know because the buttons will work, if you first press alpha, and then come up here to this top row, these are your function keys. These are also your graphing keys. I'll teach you about those in another video. But if we press F1, this gives us some fraction commands. And the first one allows us to do a numerator over a denominator. And look at that, it gives us 5. I use the right arrow to get down into the bottom, over 2. Use the right arrow to get out of the fraction. And now I can actually carry out some operation. I could say plus 3, enter. And it gives me the answer in a fraction because my initial question was in a fraction. If I needed to change it to a decimal, I could do 11 divided by 2. I hope you know what that answer is, but in case you don't, you can go to this menu, choose item number 2, convert answer to decimal, and there we have it. Working with exponents. Let's say I wanted to calculate 8 squared. Well, nicely there's a little button here for squared, and I can just do that. But what if I wanted 8 to the power of 5? There's no x to the 5th button. There's not even an x to the n or x to the y button. This little up arrow means exponent. And it'll pop you up there, and you can put a 5, press the right arrow to come down, do other calculations, or just hit enter. If you're working on the old operating system, you will unfortunately just see, just like over here in the key press history, it'll look like that. That's just how that system works. You'll get used to it. It's fine. The last thing I want to talk about here is the mode setting. This button right up here, mode. 90% of the time, you want everything in the mode settings to be highlighted down the left-hand side. You want normal settings, you don't want scientific notation, you want the decimal place to be floating. If you change the decimal place to 3, then every answer you give will be rounded off to 3 decimal places. Radians and degrees, this is one where maybe in your math class you'll be working with degrees more often than radians, so maybe you actually want to switch this over to degrees. Hit enter on that. But everything else down here, keep it highlighted down the left-hand side. You can certainly play around with these settings, but just remember, when you're done, set things back to those left settings, to these basic original settings. That's it for today's hot tips. Remember to keep your pencil sharp, and I'll be seeing you in class.